Incoming email.
What you want to know?
Craig's Corner. Hey, welcome to Craig's Corner. Today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about using Switch 3 with a Play Electric. So one of the cool things about having a Switch 3 is it allows you direct access to the effects that are on board the unit. And in a guitar world, it's kind of nice to have, say, a switch for a delay, a switch for a reverb, a switch for a boost, that kind of stuff. So you can directly control those effects. Normally on Play Electric, you've got a preset that can do a wholesale change of your guitar and your vocal sound at the same time. And you've got a hit button that can add something to the vocals, but you don't actually have buttons that can directly access the guitar effects. So adding that Switch 3 can really give you some versatility that you might want to use in your live show. So let's check out the Play Electric with a Switch 3. I've already got mine connected here, and you do need to have yours connected before you make some of these adjustments, because there are some parameters that you can't see unless you have a Switch 3 attached. So I'll go over that as well. But let's take a look at the unit. Okay, so I've got my Play Electric here. First thing I'm going to do, obviously, after connecting it, is press the Setup button. And then I'm going to use these little arrow tabs here to navigate over to the Switch 3 tab. So you see I'll get there. The default mode is loop mode, which means essentially that you've got control of the looper on the Switch 3 all the time. I'll try and sort of move it under the camera here. It might not work super well, but I can press the first button there and it's going to actually record on the looper, and then I've got some buttons to stop and clear and erase and all that kind of stuff. That's not what we want to do, obviously, with this. We want to set it up for guitar. So I'm going to go back into that setup menu there, and I'm going to change this from loop mode to custom. When I go to custom, now these buttons here representing switch 1, 2, and 3 are able to be changed, and I can set them to whatever I want. So I'm going to go through and you'll see that all of these are the vocal effects. And after you get through the vocal effects, you get into the guitar effects. So things like turning the amp on and off, using boost, which is something that I'll show you in a sec. And then you actually have the ability to get in there and go, at your delay or your reverb, any of those effects that are in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up for micromod, which is what contains flanges and choruses and that kind of stuff, which can be a useful thing for guitar players. And I'm also going to go in and I'm going to set up guitar delay. I think that's another really good one to have on a switch. And then lastly, I'm going to set up that other one I was talking about, which is guitar boost. So the first two are fairly self-explanatory. When you have the switches set up, if I press the number 1 button, whatever's assigned to micromod in the preset is going to turn on and off. So let's go into the guitar effects here, and we'll take a look, and we'll go over to the micromod setup. Okay, so on mod here, we have a medium detune. So what that means is that medium detune would come on and off. So you can see the control parameter changing from on to off as I press the Switch 3 button. So I got button 1 there, press it, comes on, press it, comes off. Okay, pretty self-explanatory. So for something like that, you might want to attach maybe a flanger or something, that was a fairly obvious effect. But the reality is, in any preset that has a micromod style in there, pressing that button will then turn on and off that micromod. So it's really cool. You can just access it anytime you want. Same thing goes for the delay. Obviously, if I'm in delay and I press button 2 now, I've got it turning on and off. I won't have to show it to you under the camera there, but you get the gist of it. The one that's a little bit different is this guitar boost control. So when you're on the amp page, now I've got button 3 assigned to boost. When I press the boost button, you'll notice that it now says guitar amp boost right up at the top there. So those are the boosted settings. And what I can do is I can set a different setting for the drive and the level when boost is active than I do for when boost is inactive. So let's activate boost and say we're going to turn up the drive a bit. And of course, if we turn up the drive a bunch, we might want to knock down the level just by a couple of dB, because adding drive does add some apparent level. Now you'll notice when I press the boost here, you'll see those values change. See how it's dropping a little bit of the level and adding some drive. So that could be your overdriven sound for a chorus, or if you wanted to have something go even louder, you could have it go for a solo, something like that. It does work in reverse, obviously, as well. So if you have a certain amount of drive in maybe the main bulk of the song, but you want to go to a clean setting, you could go into the boost settings and adjust the drive to be lower. So you could turn it way down there, so you'd almost go to a clean sound at that point. You see how they change back and forth. All I would do at that point would be to store this preset, and that's going to store the values for the boost there. And you'll notice when I press the boost button, GB shows up on the screen, and that shows you that your guitar boost is turned on. Obviously, the Switch 3, as other TC Electronic users who have used Switch 3 will know, doesn't have any lights on it, so you can't tell whether or not guitar boost is turned on or off unless you see that little light on the screen. Obviously, we don't do the same accommodation for things like the micromod or the delay buttons, because we figure if there's a big delay happening that you'll probably hear it. So I think that's a really cool way of using the Switch 3 with the Play Electric. You know, having those outboard sort of stomp box accesses to your guitar sounds can really add a ton of flexibility. You know, typically with the vocals, you've got a setup and you might change presets for, say, a chorus or a verse or something. But with guitar, it's a little bit more on the fly, and you might just kind of decide you want a bit of an effect right this second. So having those switches there that you can just knock out whenever you want is really useful. And of course, that guitar boost command is not available without the Switch 3. So adding that gives you that ability to have, you know, a bit of a sort of distortion overdrive or a solo button that you can press whenever you need it. So I hope you guys find that useful. That combination of those two units, the Play Electric and the Switch 3, can be a really versatile performance tool for anybody who's out there either playing solo or playing with a band. All right, take care.